better quality. Yeah, so I mean, I was going to start recording later, but this observation seemed interesting. So the first thing was that a Chinese woman was driving an older sedan that is not part of the subdivision. Like that car is not from Lake Point Estates, and she was coming from the pickleball place that belongs to Diosdado Cabello. So that is across the street, right? So she basically crossed the street and got into the subdivision, and she had the key to the gates. Somebody gave her keys. I mean the fob key, the magnetic key, to open the gate, as if she was a resident, right? That was the first thing that happened. Then as I go out, this is the first time in probably 2 years that nobody blocks me at that traffic light. So what they do always, like this is a TTP, right? As I come out, there's always a vehicle that is driving on, I think that road is called Rosner Road. It's driving towards the traffic light, right? But it's at a point where it's for me too late to get in, right? Like I have to let him pass, or her. And then what they do is that car stops at the traffic light and doesn't turn right. Even if they want to turn right, at the end they turn right, but during that time they don't turn right. The idea is to block me there to make me wait, right? 2 minutes, whatever, right? And during that time, they move all the cars, like they're moving all these. You see all these cars? Like these cars are going to block me ahead. So, so that's the TTP, right? And they've done this consistently for, I would say, 2 years, right? Like no exceptions. There hasn't been one day in which that has not happened, right? And this is gonna mark me here, okay? But today that did not happen, right? It's the first time in 2 years that I exit the subdivision and nobody comes rushing to block me. It's the first time, right? And I'm telling you all this because this is relevant, because I got a message yesterday that I also actually want to talk about, and I think it's because of that message. I mean, because of what I got in that message, right? I think that's the reason. They're behaving differently today, is what I'm trying to say. And then, after I exited the subdivision, right, for the first time in 2 years, I encountered face to face, coming on the other direction, that car that is always parked next to my home. So that is always parked on the 2218 Britton Ridge, right, which is a Chinese safe house that in reality is owned by that. It's a realtor, right? I can't recall the name. The spelling is difficult. It starts with a B as in Bob. So, one second. Right. So that car, because it's a surveillance vehicle, right? Like the goal of that car is to have that camera pointing at my house 24/7. So that car never moves unless they are in panic, right? When they're in panic, they move the car. Like when they think there could be a raid or something like that, then they move the car, right? But I've never encountered that car being driven on the road by a person, because obviously they don't want me to film the person, right? They don't want me to film the Chinese agents that use that car to intercept the signals. Anyhow, so as I'm exiting the subdivision, the car is coming on the opposite direction in front of me and in front of my cameras, right? Just so I record with the cameras the person. And the person is a kid. It's like it's a boy, maybe, I don't know, 18 years old, right? So they want to like have that image in the camera system, so if the FBI seizes this car, they will get confused by that, supposedly, right? They think the FBI is going to be confused by that. Anyhow, right. So let me tell you what happened yesterday. Right. So when I went to that micro center, the biggest reason I went there was to pick up messages. Okay. So I pick up some messages in different places. I'm not gonna give much details, but I'll say something, right? Because I don't want them to then, harm somebody that is innocent of, that hasn't done anything, right? Because they may think that one of the people at the Walmart is a traitor, right? And they may get mistaken and harm somebody by mistake, right? Mistakenly. So I'm gonna tell them a little bit of information so they don't do that. Only so they don't do that, right? So there's no need to harm anybody because it was not a person. What some of the things that we do, like we do different things, right? But I'm gonna tell you what I did yesterday, right? So the device was hidden days ago in a shelf. So you will have to disassemble all the shelves of that Walmart to find it. If it's still there. Maybe it's not there anymore, I don't know. But the technique is not to use a person as a relay, but to use a static object that is hidden in a place where there's a lot of noise. It's impossible to find it. So anyhow, I got a message, well, a series of messages, right? And the messages, I don't know. Like I am saying this because I need to ask the informant, and I'm not gonna start transmitting messages right now because I know that they are in the highest state of panic. And they may get something, right? So I'm not going to put anybody at risk. So I'm gonna ask the question here, and then informant, if you get this, let me know through whatever channel, is that the one that we should use in that opportunity, right? Because we rotate them in a specific way, right? That the informant knows and I know, right? So it's not necessary for me to say how we're going to rotate it. But anyhow, so the message was a little bit, I would say polluted, right? Like there was some things that were not clear, that were damaged in the transmission or in the decryption, I don't know. But, I don't know, like maybe I'm misreading this, right? Because again, the message was damaged. But if I try to analyze this message, believe me, I've been all morning trying to think what other thing could this mean, right? And I see like 2 or 3 possibilities, but, 2 of them are not very likely, I would say. So that's an Interceptor. Whiskey, January, Honduras, 4066. It's a Toyota Solara, black with brown roof at exit 747. So, yes. So, I don't know. I've been all morning thinking, what else could this mean? Because honestly, I can't believe it. Right? If this is true, this means that I won. Right, that this is over. This is another one. BMW X5, Whiskey, January, Frank, 2017. So now I have one on each side. Like, see, this is what I call an statistical anomaly. Oh my God. I'm gonna wave at the agent. It's an African American man, maybe 30 years old. So anyhow, where was I? Yes, the message, right? So it's damaged, right? But if I read it, right, and I try to analyze what it says and try to make sense of it. I think what it means is that yesterday somebody at the Supreme Court got in trouble, or this is what I'm not sure, right? Like I don't know, because I honestly can't believe it. It's such a high level institution, right? Well, first of all, it's unbelievable that somebody would be compromised, right? Working there. Like I wouldn't expect that, right? But secondly, that somebody could have gotten in trouble. But again, like, you know, I might be misreading this, right? It could be that it wasn't at the Supreme Court, that it was on the way to the Supreme Court, right? Like, it's possible. It's possible that I'm missing something, right? That because the message was damaged. It wasn't a clear transmission. But and I don't know. There's a message. There's a part of the message that talks about a writer, and that I can't make sense of that. And I've mentioned this before, right? I do this thing where I do a multi-hop translation to obfuscate the thing, right? It's possible that a writer is not really a writer, but it's a clerk. Like, you know, in some languages, and this comes from the Latin scriba, right? The person that writes, I think, I'm not sure about this, right? But I think the derivation of clerk, I mean, the root of clerk, really, in Germanic languages is scriba. It's not a clerk per se, right? And I don't know, like, it could be that the translation hop got into a path that picked one of those, you know, not so common Germanic languages, and there was a mistake. But it's something with the writer, and it's something with the Supreme Court. But I'm not clear if it's inside of the Supreme Court per se, or if it's on the way to the Supreme Court, right? And now, this begs the question to me whether the filing was successful or not. I have to tell you, I called yesterday, first thing in the morning, well, not first thing, like 10 a.m., right? Right after I took care of the Delaware thing, right? And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that. So right after, I called the clerk of the Supreme Court. When I call, and this is recorded in my Google Calendar, in the Mobile V6 at gmail.com. There's a recording and the transcript and everything. So I call, and by mistake I called the Supreme Court of the District of Columbia, of Washington. Right. I think I called I'm not sure, I can't recall, but I called the Supreme Court of a state by mistake, right? Not the federal Supreme Court. But the lady was very polite and nice, and she gave me the number of the right Supreme Court, right? And then I called them. Then when I call, I got this automated machine that asks you, you know, you want to talk to the clerk, I said, I pressed the option to talk to the clerk, but then I got an automated message that said that, well, it didn't say it, but it sounded like they don't take phone calls. Like, the message only said, you know, leave your message, clear message with your name, your case number if you have it, and we'll call you back. And I left a brief but very clear message about who I was, why was I calling. I mentioned that I do not have a case number, but that the package had been received. Right? So this vehicle is interesting. It has interesting antennas and a searchlight. Could be, I don't know, it's not marked. It's not a police, supposedly, right? And the plate is personal. But it looks interesting. It's Whiskey Zulu, X as in Whiskey Zulu, what starts with X? I don't know. Well, Whiskey Zulu, X 3884. So anyhow, X-ray, right? And the driver is a man, maybe 200 pounds, 220, but I couldn't see the ethnicity because the tinted windows are pitch black. You can't see inside. Yeah, so it's not clear to me really. Okay, yes. So I was telling you about the clerk, right? So I called, I left the message, but they did not call me back. They haven't. Right? Nobody has called me back. So I do not know what is the status of that filing. I don't know if if something is wrong, or if it's all in order. I don't know. Or if I need to do anything else, and they haven't called me. So I don't know, right? But this message that I got yesterday makes me wonder, right? Whether maybe it wasn't even successful because maybe it was a stop, and maybe that got somebody in trouble, right? But if that's the case, again, I don't know if the message is accurate, right? It's possible that this is just a big misunderstanding because I'm using this obfuscation technology. It's possible. Like, this has happened before, not to this level of confusion, but sometimes I get messages that, I interpret them in a way that are not right. But I see that on a subsequent message. Like, usually there's more than one message and I can figure out what the previous message that was wrong said, right? In this occasion, all the messages I got, none of them seem to suggest that I'm reading this wrong. I have to say that, right? So the thread is consistent, at least, right? It seems like somebody got in trouble. Now, I also have to tell you, when I left, and this is actually very interesting, when I left the Walmart yesterday, Micro Center, that area, right? And I came back, I said in the recording that, and I have that recording somewhere, I said that the environment looked odd, like that they had drastically changed their behavior from 1 minute to the next. And I'm saying all this because it is consistent with what I was seeing, like exiting the subdivision. Like, I saw all these things that never happened. Like, nobody blocking me at the traffic light, the woman, tracking me but not really turning on my way or the other way, but getting into Lake Point Estates. Then the teenager, supposedly from the house next door, coming on the opposite direction, so to get filmed by the camera, right? It's too many anomalies, right? Too many abnormal things that they would never do in 2 years, and they did it today. So it's possible that somebody did get in trouble but I don't know if it would be in the Supreme Court or it would be in another court, because that could also be the case, right? That it wasn't the Supreme Court of the federal court, but it was the Supreme Court of Texas. I don't know. But I also have to put this in perspective with the fact that I just filed this thing with the Supreme Court in Washington, D.C. That is a relevant piece of information. Yeah, sorry, I stopped talking. It's just that there's a lot of traffic and I need to drive safely. Yeah, this guy is important. Sam Nicole Victor 0130. So this guy is super important. Tango Whiskey 5072. It's a Audi Q7 white. Has 2 W's. It's a woman. Kilo Bravo Golf 7090. Kilo Bravo Golf 7090. Yeah, so given that news, right, of yesterday, I'm gonna say this, right, in case, because, you know, if somebody got in trouble, assume for a second, right, that somebody got in trouble at the Supreme Court, or, you know, on the supply chain of the Supreme Court. Doesn't matter, it's the same. I mean, for my practical effects, it's the same. That must mean that the authorities are watching, right? And not only watching, they're acting. So I'm going to tell them this. I'm going right now to FedEx on the airport. My goal is to refile. I'm going to send the petition again in case that person stopped it or destroyed it. I have to send it again. I have no choice because I have no way to confirm whether it was processed or not, and the clerk is not returning my calls. And I got this message yesterday that makes me think that somebody could have destroyed the petition. So what I did, I created a letter explaining why I'm resending it. And I'm going to send a second copy of the petition. In case they destroy it. Right? So if authorities are watching, because the last time, which was Friday, that I went to that FedEx, there was a meta incident with the attendant of the shipping center. So it could be a good opportunity to, to catch some bad guys or girls. Oh, this is interesting. This is very interesting. I don't know, it could be a coincidence, right? It could be a coincidence, but I'm going to tell you this. That truck that it's in front of me right now, that says PV Rentals, right? It says PV Rentals Leasing Sales, Trucks and Vans and Cars, 800-275-7878. That's the phone number. That is the same rental company that D106 rented. This was on July 2024. I think it was for the 4th of July weekend. He rented a truck like that, and it was full with equipment, and he parked it in front of my house. And I have photos of that, and I know it was full of equipment because I have a thermal camera, and I took pictures of it with a thermal camera, and the truck was hot during the middle of the night, and it was a refrigerated truck. So I don't know, it could be a coincidence, right? But I imagine, right, if he used that particular company, it's because of a reason. He's not going to use a company that is not part of their, ecosystem, because of the thing that I said yesterday. They use a very close, tight loop system. So he's not going to use a company that is not compromised for that, right? He might use it for something else, but not for that. So anyhow, I was saying, because I got that information, right, and I haven't received any confirmation or contact or anything from the clerk, I made the decision this morning to refile. I have no choice. I know it's sometimes it's frowned upon, right, because it looks amateurish, right, sending something twice in two different, and it might create confusion, right? But I mean, in these circumstances, I can't take any risks. I'm not going to risk that she destroy the document, or she or him, right? I don't know. But anyhow, that was the bump yesterday that I got. Now, what I was saying is interesting because I noticed while I was traveling back, right, to my house, I noticed the change in behavior, and I even recorded that comment in the recording. I think it's not in the bloopers video that I uploaded this morning. I didn't put that in there. I thought it was, it felt unnatural because the content is more about things that are funny, right? And the other things I said after were more serious, so I didn't want to mix it. But maybe because of this, I should, right? So anyhow, I've noticed the change in behavior yesterday. This guy is important. Lima Tango Mike 0133. It's a Suburban. Dark gray, late model.
Take the Interstate 610 East exit on the right.
So,
then keep left to take Interstate 610 East.
Yes, so I noticed the change over here. So what I've been trying to say for the last 10 minutes, and I don't finish, is that it makes me wonder if this happened. Assume for a second that the message was right, I read it correctly, and this indeed happened. It makes me wonder if it happened in the evening, because it means, I mean, if it correlates with the change in behavior that I saw. Because, I mean, and this would be incredible, right? Like how something that happened in Washington, D.C. affects the behavior of hundreds of people in Katy, you know, without this being a public event or anything. I mean, this right there, I mean, if this is verifiable, what I'm saying, right? If these two things can be connected together, this shows that this thing they're doing is a state sponsor, because there's no other explanation. How can something that happened, imagine that it was the FBI, right, that arrested somebody. I don't know, I'm just guessing, right? Well, because what else could have happened? Or at least interrogated somebody, right? Interviewed, let's put it that way. If it was that the FBI interviewed somebody or asked questions, right, about a filing that did not arrive, something like that, right? How could that, and this is something that happened in Washington, probably in a private setting, right? This is not in the news. Well, to be honest, I think I haven't read the news today, now that I think about it. So maybe, I don't know. I don't know. But if this is something that happened in Washington on a private setting and nobody knows about it, how can that possibly affect the behavior of hundreds of people and cars in Katy, Texas, a suburban town like this? It would mean that this is a state sponsor, right? I don't know. I would make that argument. But it's a mystery. It's a mystery to me. What I mean, if this message, if I got it wrong, if I got it right, what, you know. What is the situation with that message?
Interstate 610 East.
Oh, I got the wrong exit. I made a mistake. It doesn't matter. We're not in a hurry because that thing closes at 9 p.m. So I have literally all day to do this. And it's also good because it creates noise on their side, right? Because all the cars that they had already positioned are now on their way to the airport, right?
Now take exit 52, be on the right. In 1,000 feet, turn left to stay on North Freeway. Now turn left to stay on North Freeway.
North Freeway. Okay.
In 500 feet, take the Interstate 45 South ramp on the left. Now take the Interstate 45 South ramp on the left.
Now, I mean, I mean, if you're following this, right? If you're an observer following this saga, you will realize at this point that I do this thing where I always try to think
Take exit 51 on the right.
on the consequences,
Interstate
right?
610 East. Then take the Interstate 610 East ramp on the left.
on the consequence and the meaning, right, of whatever happens. And I think,
Exit 51 on the right.
I mean, I don't know, it's tempting, right? It's tempting to go into that rabbit hole of trying to
Now take the Interstate 610 east ramp on the left.
trying to think of what could be, what could happen, right? Which sometimes is a dangerous game, because you know, if the message is wrong, right? If I'm misreading this thing and this never happened, or if the informant is wrong, maybe he was tricked, right? Maybe the message is real, but he was tricked intentionally by Diosdado. I don't know, right?
On the right onto Hardy Road North.
There's many ways this could be wrong. And then, you know, it's a futile exercise to try to figure out what will happen on something that is not, on a premise that is not accurate. But in this case, you know, I think I'm gonna indulge because it's too tempting. So, you know, I cannot help but notice that they have systematically blocked me with the clerks in all the courts. In the 387th, in the... Well, I think the only one that I have not really checked, because I have not configured it in the pipeline, is the one about the HOA dispute, right? But for the company. So I don't know. I don't know if that, but it's the same clerk. It's Beverly McGraw Walker, I think is the name, right? It's the same clerk. So yes, it's the same clerk. So yes, so far all the clerks, right? So the 387th, so the Fort Bend County clerk, the Southern District of Texas. Well, in fact, all the clerks are named as defendants in the federal lawsuit that got dismissed by Hidner. I haven't told you that. Hidner took the dramatic step of dismissing the entire case on the 6th, the same day that I sent the package to FedEx, via FedEx to the Supreme Court. The way I read that is as an attempt to kind of, you know, how do I say this? Unlink the jurisdiction of the case. On the case. But as I was saying, right? It's too tempting to not do the exercise of thinking what this could mean. So assume for a second that somebody got in trouble, right? Somebody got at least interviewed at the Supreme Court, possibly the clerk, right? I would think, or somebody that works in the clerk office, like not necessarily the clerk, but like an employee, right? It could be somebody low level, but somebody, right? Assume for a second that this happened, right? If this happened, this means that this network knows that they can't pull that off this time, right? It basically disarms that possibility, because if the FBI is already watching the clerk's office, they can't do anything with that. I mean, they have to accept the filings, right? And they have to process them as if, you know, they didn't have one person in that office. In the event that they have one person, I don't know, right? To be honest, I haven't checked the people, right? I haven't run them through the pipeline to see. I haven't done it, right? So I don't know. But so this means that they can't pull. I mean, if this is true, they can't do anything with that office, right? So they will have to let the filing go through, right? And this is the equivalent on a soccer match that the goalie, right, the person that is at the post, like guarding, so nobody, you know, gets the ball in, right, and gets a goal, suddenly takes off and goes on vacation, right, and leaves the post open, right? I mean, this is a tremendous opportunity for me if this happens, right? If this happened, it would be amazing. But again, it might be just wishful thinking, right? Me hoping that... See, this is funny. That car that is towing that green, I think it's a Camaro, right? It was ahead of me on I-10, and I had to do that U-turn and everything. And now, like, you know, I probably got delayed by 10 minutes, and I merged back, and he's again in front of me. I mean, how is this possible? Is he waiting for me? You know? The plate is Victor Golf Nicole 3691. And I get a bit closer to see if we can get the face. Yes, it's a Venezuelan from Maracaibo, probably. And you can take that to the bank. These people are funny, to be honest with you. Yeah, so we're at exit 138. It's a Dodge Ram, silver. And it's towing a green Mustang. Camaro, I don't know. The Camaro doesn't have plates. Yeah, so I mean, if that happened, it's a game changer for me, right? Because it means that for the first time in 10 months, I'm gonna be heard in a court. I mean, my arguments, right? I might not get a hearing, but at least somebody will read what I wrote. So it's interesting. Well, and risking to say the obvious, right? If it is the case that the message is correct and this actually happened yesterday, February 9th, 2026, you know, this would be a demonstration to the network that the informant is accurate. Because otherwise, how could I have known this? I only went out yesterday to Walmart and to Micro Center, right? And you followed me all the way, right? Back and forth. So, you know, how do I know this, right? And you probably saw that I haven't connected to the internet today, right? So, it's something to think about. Also, if the judges are listening, you know, because maybe they didn't tell you this, right? I mean, not maybe, probably, right? Probably they didn't tell you. For obvious reasons. I mean, I'm talking about the local judges, right? Here in Texas. So, you know, you probably don't know this, right? Because of information asymmetry, because otherwise you would quit. But if this is true, you know, one has to think what that means, right? For oneself. so I just sent the package via FedEx. The refiling of the petition.
1 mile, take the ramp on the right toward Hardy Toll Road.
I'm gonna give you the tracking number just in case, because there was another meta incident with the woman there, the other woman, right? They seem to be the supervisor. So the tracking number is FedEx 39862108 66659. I think it's 3 sixes, but I'm not sure because I'm driving. But I think it's 3 sixes. So this time the meta incident was that again, the woman asked me for my driver's license. I gave it to her, and she insisted on forcing the sender's address to be the Valley Side address. Like, she insisted this time on that, and I tried to convince her, but she was more firm than the previous one. So she refused. She said, I cannot, you will not be able to send the package if you don't use the address in your driver's license. So, she basically forced that situation, right? And I wasn't going to pick up a fight with the woman, with the attendant. And it doesn't really matter. Like, I included a cover letter with the right address. And, there's no room for confusion on the clerk. And also, if the message of the informant was accurate,
500 feet, turn right onto Green
yesterday, then it doesn't really matter.
Now turn right onto Greens Road.
I mean, if somebody, right, in the let's call it the supply chain, right, already got in trouble, I'm guessing, right, the next person in line is not going to risk their skin on that, right? But it was kind of a tense situation with the attendant of FedEx because she was insistent, and she made a comment. She said that if I use it's kind of funny, right? Like how these people plan this, they see these things. I mind, right, they're recording this, right? It's like when the security guard of Lake Point Estates told me that I was impersonating a police officer, right? Because my car has flashing lights. I'm talking about the SUV, right? Which is the narrative of Phil Denning. So they do this thing, right? Where they make these comments and they're recording it, right? But anyhow, this lady, she said something to the effect of, she said that if I used, because of course I told her that on Friday when I sent, and she was there on Friday, she saw this, right? On Friday when I sent the other package, we used my other address, right? Because I was paying with a debit card, and I gave her the same reasoning, right? And then she replies with, well, if you use the other address that is not the one in your driver's license, you are falsificating a document. That's what she said, right? So she accused me all of falsification, right? She charged me with a crime because I sent the package from I own the other house. I own it. Like, I'm not falsifying anything. But anyhow, I own the Valley Side Drive, right? And the company owns the Britton Ridge Drive, right? But I have access to that address. That's my address, right? But she made sure to say that, right? So she said that I was falsifying a document. She actually charged me with a crime.
Turn right onto North Sam Houston Parkway East.
But anyhow, at the end,
west ramp on the left.
I sent the package, and
now turn right onto North Sam Houston Parkway East.
And there was another oddity. She made a point of asking me for the declared value of the package. I don't know if it has something to do with the cashier's check that is inside, right? I don't know.
Now take the North Beltway 8 West ramp on the left.
So this is what? This is 40. This is 240. Oh, this is 249. My mistake here. Anyhow, so that was the. You know, I'm starting to think that the W0 pattern is broader than that. You know, I'm getting that impression that it's not just W0 and X0. It seems like there could be a lot of other letters. Like for example, T0 seems like a good candidate at this point. You know, like TBH and a 0, or TSJ and a 0. And Victor 0 also seems like a pattern. Anyhow, I sent the package, right? This time I didn't do the affidavit thing that I did the last time, because you know, like it feels like beating a horse, beating a dead horse, is what they say, right, in English. I mean, I know they're gonna open the package and they're probably reading it right now, right? So it doesn't really matter. So you know, the package was tendered to FedEx at the 17855 JFK Boulevard, Houston location. So this is the one at the next to the airport, to the George Bush Airport. And according to this, it was 3 pounds, 3.3 pounds. And it's overnight, arriving there tomorrow before 8:30 a.m. So tomorrow, February 11th, is going to arrive. Okay. So I don't know, it's interesting because, you know, if there is no goalie, no goalkeeper, let's see what happens, right? Now, there's another thing I wanted to tell you. It's more on the technical side of things. So that the first time I went to the FBI, right? I mean, this week, right? Because I don't know if I mentioned this before, but I went to the FBI once, maybe like 2 years ago. I didn't get in, but I tried, right? But anyhow, this week when I went to the headquarters of the FBI, I noticed, right, that in front of that apartment complex that is in that demo, there is a company called Mustang Cat that is a rental of Caterpillar equipment, right? And it's marking the index. And on I-10, on the Katy area, behind the Amazon warehouse, there is another Mustang Cat that is also close to the police. There's a small police station that has its own antenna on the back, its own cellular antenna, on that road that is behind the Amazon warehouse, right? I'm telling you this because after I noticed that, I haven't mentioned this before, but it's a technical observation, right? At this point, it's observational. I haven't really applied, you know, rigorous statistics to this. It's a theory. Let's call it that. Not even a theory. It's a hunch, right? I've done some experiments with data with this, but I don't feel comfortable saying that it's a theory yet, right? It's just a hunch. But I'm gonna share it with you in case there's anybody out there, following this, and they have time and resources, because I haven't had the time to invest more time on this. I would love to, but with my chicken wing project, I haven't had a chance to. So let's call it a hunch, okay? And I'm sharing it in case anybody has cycles. Yes, Lima, January Lima 4074, I think, or 14. It's a white Ford truck, pickup truck. Let's see if I can get closer. No, sorry. Lima, January Lima 0174. 0174. It's a Ford truck. And it's a man, maybe early 40s, mid 40s, white, Caucasian. Maybe 5'10", 180 pounds more or less. Anyhow, yes, it's a hunch. Okay, so I'm not. If you ask me, I'm like, I would say 65%, right? Convinced that this could be a thing. But the hunch is that I think they might be using these equipment rental places, like the ones that rent like construction equipment, as how would I describe that? It would be like a message board. So the theory, the hunch is that they park the equipment and they arrange it in a way that has a meaning. It's an encoder. That they're encoding. I don't want to say messages, because I don't think they're messages. I think they're more like a status updates. I think they're encoding a status says with the machinery. Right? And if you think about it, it's an interesting idea, because these machines has specific colors and and they're large, right? So if you think about it as a screen, they would be like pixels that you can move around and rearrange, and they're visible with good precision from the sky without investing on, like, even with low precision observation equipment from the sky, like it doesn't have to be a high-end satellite, right? You can make up the message. And it seems to me like these Mustang Cat places are used in part for this. They might be used for other things, but I think they are being used for this. It's like a message board. So I don't know. It's something that I need to explore more, right? And I already started working on a pipeline to analyze these images from the Google Earth and the other sources that I have. But I just haven't had the time to do it, to do this with rigor, right? With mathematical rigor. But it seems, I haven't found anything that discards that hunch. Let's put it that way, right? And I've been looking for things, for observations that, prove this wrong, that this is not, that cannot be true, right? And I haven't found anything. Like all the instances that I've analyzed seem like there could be, right? So I don't know. Maybe that's why they're focused on that specific type of businesses, right? Because they're pixels that they can move around with a lot of freedom, right? They don't have to, like, if you think about it, right, the way they're encoding things are things like the street names and the colors of the roofs and things like that. But those things are more permanent, right? Like, to paint a roof, it takes labor, it takes time, it takes material, and it's detectable, right? You cannot be changing the color of a roof every day or every week, right? because somebody could notice. But these machines, because different brands have different colors, and some of these colors are even trademarked, right? Like the green of John Deere, I think that thing is trademarked, right? So it's a very distinctive color that probably nothing else has it, right? Because it's trademarked. So it's impossible to get it wrong, right? From a satellite, that's what I'm saying. I mean, from a satellite, you see a tractor or one of these construction machines. If it's a John Deere, you will distinguish it by the color, by the tone of green, right? Because the thing is trademarked. So it's a beautiful. I mean, if you think about it, it would be a beautiful design, right? I see that and I see beauty in whoever had that idea. But I don't know. It could be that it could just be a series of coincidences. But so far, it looks like that. It looks like it could be. So I wanted to share that just in case anybody has time. Yeah. So I want to tell you something else. I don't know. It's not a blooper, but it's something kind of funny, right? So I was working this morning on with the legal vaccine pipeline on creating a document to file on that court on Fort Bend County where they are, where Phil Denning is harassing me for the no trespassing sign, right? Oh, by the way, Phil Denning came in this morning again to patrol the front of my home, and he did an inspection. Like, I don't know exactly what he was inspecting, but he stopped and he inspected something on my front yard. I don't know, just random comment.
In 1 mile.
So that was today, February 10th, right? 2026.
Frontage Road.
I think around noon, right? But this was when I was working on that document. So I think he had to, maybe what he wanted to do was to get the signal, right? To try to intercept the antenna, I don't know. But anyhow, what's funny, right, is that I was working on this document, right? So I was working on a filing, and the purpose of that filing was to file with the court a copy of the certificate of revival of the corporation, because the corporation lapsed for like 3 days, and that in itself is interesting, right? So I mean, I'm not going to litigate this because I'm not an attorney, and that the corporation needs to retain its own attorney, right, to litigate this with Phil Denning. I'm not going to get into that trap of like being treated as a pro se. Like, I'm not a pro se in this. I'm not a defendant on this case. It's the corporation. And the service was invalid. Like from day one, they started harassing me personally, right, sending documents to this address. But this is a Delaware corporation. They had to serve the company in Delaware, the registered agent. I think they didn't do it, right? So I mean, the whole process is a sham. Like the whole trial, right? The default judgment, the service of the documents, everything is faulty because they didn't serve the company. They serve this address, and this is not the registered address of the company. But anyhow, right? What happened was,
Now take the exit on the
when I revived the corporation, I realized, because I get the revival, right? The revival says that the registered agent quit on January 18, 2026, and this is, I mean, to me, this is super interesting, because think about it, right? The registered agent could have quit last year because Gloria did not renew the thing before she even left the house, right? So in reality, this registered agent could have quit months ago, and he didn't. They didn't, right? Now, it's interesting that the registered agent really quit only after they filed for the motion for contempt on January 7th. Like 10 days after, the registered agent quit. And I think this is important. I mean, the timing for them. And then let me tell you my thinking here. Maybe I'm wrong, right? But this is what I think. Assume for a second that they made, assume that they control the registered agent, right? I mean, let's not get into the details of why I think this way, but let's imagine, for the sake of the argument, that they do, that they can control the decisions of the registered agent. So if they had made the registered agent quit last year, before they decided to try to put me in jail with this, they would have risked that I could have noticed, that I could have read that email somehow, or that I could have suspected something, and then I would have paid and done what Gloria did not do, right? And I would have taken those steps, and I would have disabled the thread. So because of that, I believe they needed the window to be small. I mean, the window of time between when the registered agent quit and the hearing for contempt, to reduce the possibility of me fixing the problem, right? So I think that this shows that it's intentional, right? Because this registered agent could have quit any time last year, and they didn't. They only quit after they decided to trigger this, which was after I filed a complaint with the DOJ. They did not trigger this before. They triggered this on January 7th, right? When the same day that I filed the first complaint with the DOJ. So I think it shows, right? But anyhow, so this document I was working on was a document to get into the record in this court that the corporation is in good standing, and not only that, but also get into the record that the corporation was in good standing all this time, even until January 18th. So even when this lawyer of Phil Denning filed that motion for contempt, the service of that motion is invalid, because the corporation was in good standing on that date, on January 7th, and he should have served the corporation in Delaware, and he didn't. He sent this to Britton Ridge Drive here in Katy, right? So even that motion has an invalid service. So this completely destroys their effort on this front, right? But I'm not going to start litigating this, because I'm not an attorney of the corporation. I'm the director of the corporation. I'm not the attorney, and the corporation needs to retain its attorney to argue about jurisdiction, right, and destroy their case with this. But I'm not going to do that, right? So I configured the pipeline with all these constraints, right? And the pipeline produced a document that is actually pretty funny. I filed it, I mean, it's not a joke. Like, the document is a serious document, but the way the title is phrased, it's funny, right? The document is titled Notice of Inability to Speak. And an offer of proof of evidence personally from Rinaldo Aguiar, right? So it's saying that I'm personally offering this proof of evidence, although I'm not representing the corporation, right? And then in that I attached the...
Now take the exit on the right toward West Road.
And then I attached the certificate of revival that has this timeline spelled out. It clearly says that the corporation was in good standing until January 18th. So after all these processes, including the motion for contempt and the wrong service that they did. But the reason the pipeline filed this notice of, well, I filed it, but the pipeline generated, right, the language. This notice of inability to speak is based not only on the fact that I cannot speak on behalf of the corporation because I'm not the attorney, but also on the fact that Judge Telfair and Judge Bell repeatedly shut me up every time I've tried to speak in one of their hearings. Right? But the title is funny, right? I'm putting them in notice that I have an inability to speak. So I thought it was funny. So I just wanted to give you that little story. Yes. So sorry. I'm doing the thing where I'm recording segments, right? When I remember stuff. I want to tell you on the messages that I got yesterday from the
1,000
informant.
feet, keep left to stay on Texas 8 Beltway South.
There was also because it's like a thread, right? Like the system I have is basically like a series of messages that get stitched together. I receive them in different places and through different channels. I mentioned this before, right? Like part of my strategy is to not rely on a single channel communication system, like because those systems are
Now
weak
keep
by
left
definition.
to stay on Texas 8 Beltway South.
And I've described this in a demo, right? Why I believe this is one of the weaknesses is that they attack systematically. So in one of these messages, right? It was also damaged, right? And I think it was because of technical reasons. I'm not gonna get into the details of why, but the message was also damaged, and it had a word. Remember I mentioned before about the writer, right? That mention of writer that I think is really a clerk. There was another mention about a reader. And here I don't know, right? I don't know what to map that to try to reconstruct the meaning. But one thing that did catch my attention was that the person that signs the package is named Lee, with 2 E's, I think. And I mean, if it was a word, like if you spell that in lowercase without the capital L, if you just spell L-E-E in Spanish, that is like the past participle of read, right? Like it's like the past tense of read in Spanish. So I don't know, it made me think that maybe in this case of reader, maybe it was that it got damaged because the name of the person that received the package was happened to be, coincidentally the same thing as the past tense of read in Spanish. Anyhow, what I'm trying to say is that maybe the person that got in trouble was who signed the package. So maybe that person, conveniently misplaced the package and then got in trouble. I don't know. It could also be, right? So either the clerk or the mailroom person, right? But in either case, it would be consistent with the narrative of somebody in the Supreme Court got in trouble, or in the supply chain of the Supreme Court, right? But I forgot to tell you about the possibility that it could be a Lee, which I think is the person that signed the package. And I remember this because I also want to tell you that the person that received the package at FedEx, that lady, she did not scan it right away. And I know this happens, often. But it could also be a way to not get the package in the system on time, or to have the package in a state where nobody knows what it is for a while, right? So I delivered the package, and she put her on a conveyor belt that was placed to her right. She put the sticker on the package, but she did not scan the label. And when I left, I tried to track it, and it wasn't available in the tracking system yet. So I don't know. If authorities are watching this, I would keep an eye on that package, right, at the FedEx, because now maybe the interception point and the stopping point is at FedEx, right? I don't know. It's just a thought.